This guy who we didn't think was worth anything looks like he's worth more than we thought, and we don't have anything better, so do we re-sign him? They chose not to. I honestly think if they had re-signed him, we would all be less happy at the end of this year. You might ask, should the Vikings have re-signed Sam Darnold? Would the Vikings be better if they had re-signed Sam Darnold? Well, we have to ask ourselves why the Vikings didn't re-sign Sam Darnold in the first place. Partly it was money. They didn't want to pay $100 million. Well, why didn't they think he was worth the money he wanted? Look how good he was last year. Look how good he is again this year. Seems like he's worth that money. Well, it's because the final 2 games he played in a Vikings uniform. And I want to look back at those 2 games. His performance in prior games, his performance this year, and maybe the performance of some other quarterbacks to understand what happened to Sam Darnold the final 2 games of 2024. And would we be better if we had kept him? So I'm going to do some Googling here. Tom Arnold. Okay. Football Reference. That's my go-to place. So let's look at Sam Darnold. Let's look at his career. Okay, of course we've looked at his career recently. 14-3 last year with the Vikings. I mean, how could they not re-sign him? Look at his quarterback rating, 102.5. And this year he's basically identical, 103.8 quarterback rating. Well, what happened at the end of last year? Let's look at his game log. We kind of remember it didn't end very well, and that's really why they didn't re-sign him. Because if Sam Darnold had won at Detroit the final week of last season, he'd still be a Viking. Or won that first playoff game, he'd still be a Viking. He needed to win one more game, he'd still be a Viking. So if you let's just look at his quarterback rating. Okay, this is incredible. Okay, I didn't realize this. We look through these 17 weeks. His quarterback rating was above 100. And how many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 13 games. 13 games, his quarterback rating was above 100. That leaves 4 other games. Well, 3 of those other 4 games, his quarterback rating was like 50. Week 5 against the Jets. That was, I think, an Aaron Rodgers game where Aaron Rodgers threw an interception to lose it. Vikings maybe should have lost that game. 12-7 win at Jacksonville. I don't even remember that game, but I'm guessing it was ugly. 48.2. And then the final week against Detroit, 55.5. Lost 31-9. There was one other subpar game. That was a win against Chicago, where his quarterback rating was about 75. Really, he was very feast or famine, mostly feast. We're talking 13 games with a quarterback rating over 100. And there's 3 games where he just sucked. And 1 game where he was kind of meh. But when he was good, he was great. When he was bad, he was terrible. And that's why he's not a Viking, right? Because against Detroit, he couldn't just be okay. If he was just okay, or if he was just okay against the Rams, he kind of was just okay in the playoffs. But the problem with Darnold was he was either really good or really bad. Now, how is he this year? Is he doing that same thing? Because we saw him against the Vikings this year, where he didn't look that good. He didn't really do anything much. So this year, game log, his quarterback rating, so he started a little slow. Here's where he's actually kind of average the first 2 weeks. Then he hit a stride, which is to say he either had quarterback rating over 100 or kind of a bad quarterback rating under 75. There's no like 80 to 90 quarterback ratings except these first 2 weeks of the year when he's kind of finding his footing. You can actually see week 10 against the Rams, they lost, where he was absolutely putrid. No touchdowns, 4 interceptions. Game against the Vikings, he didn't throw any picks, but he was not doing great. So This seems to kind of be the Darnold thing. This is what held him back. This is kind of seems to be why he's not a Viking. Let's compare him to Jordan Love and Jared Goff. Let's try that, okay? Jordan Love, J Love. Let's look at his 2024 stats, game logged. And his quarterback rating was only 96.7. Only. I mean, it's in this day and age, that's above average, but not great. And if you look at his quarterback ratings by game, he doesn't really have any of those absolute stinkers that Darnold had. So he had you might say, a worse season on average than Darnold last year in 2024. He didn't have all these 100 quarterback rating games. He had actually 5 in a row, which is pretty good. But his lowest was 69.7 in a loss to Detroit, where, he completed almost 60% of his passes, threw for 270 yards, threw only 1 pick and no touchdowns. It was kind of just not a real good game. It wasn't just horrible. He had a last game of the year, lost to Chicago, 7 for 12. Did he get hurt or something? What happened in that game? Don't care, not going to look it up. But so, he didn't seem to have as good a year as Sam Darnold, but he didn't kind of suck the game away the way maybe Darnold did. Now let's look at Jared Goff, J Goff. He just looks he just looks like just like a preppy, like something I don't like. 2024 game log. Don't know. So his quarterback rating was really high, 111.8. He was amazing last year. He had 2. If you look at this, he had 2 stinkers. And then how did he do in the playoffs? He had a stinker in the playoffs. Okay. Well. This looks a little more like Darnold, but actually it's not in a sense, because look at these quarterback ratings in some of these games. 18 for 18? 155.8, 153.7, 140, 158.3. I think that's perfect. It is, I think. And look at this. 137, 132.4. So his highs were even higher than Darnold's. But he had the lows. He had a stinker here. 61.7, 59.7. Maybe not quite as low as Darnold's stinkers, but then he had a 59.7 in that playoff loss to Washington. So if the Vikings had Jared Goff instead of Sam Darnold last year, and could he have had that stinker in Week 17 and in the playoffs? Looks like he could have. How's Goff looking 2025? Again, look at these ratings. Jared Goff, 156, 153, 135.9, 132.9. This guy is just huge. Puts up the huge numbers. But there you got the 60.1 at Philadelphia. That's a tough place to play against a good team, and he didn't bring it. 14 to 37. Other than that, though, he's been pretty consistent. But will he keep it up? Can he pull that out in the big games? I don't know. Let's go back to Jordan Love. How's Jordan Love doing this year? Why do they keep showing Kevin O'Connell? Stop it. So did he get hurt again this year? What's the deal? So you look at his quarterback ratings. So he stepped it up this year. Doesn't have as high a highs as Goff, but he's been pretty consistent. Pretty consistent. There's really just one stinker, 68.7, which isn't that low, but no touchdowns, under 200 yards passing. Philadelphia. That seems to be the common denominator. Everybody stinks against Philadelphia. Jordan Love maybe looks a little better. A little more consistent. Maybe avoids the stinkers. Jared Goff doesn't really avoid the stinkers, it seems. And he had one in the playoffs. Sort of like Darnold. Maybe worse than Darnold. Who else should we look at? Who's another? Joe Burrow? Let's look at his 2024. Was he even healthy? Okay. 4,900 yards. That's pretty good. 108.5. Okay, so Joe Burrow in 2024, 43 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. This guy, this is the man. Okay. So what are his quarterback ratings by week? This tells an interesting story. I look at this. His lowest quarterback rating is 84.7. Again, against Philadelphia. Philadelphia apparently has a pretty good pass defense. Whatever they're doing, it's working. But he avoids the stinkers. He avoided the stinkers for an entire season. He's got the highs. He's got the mids. He's got a lot of 90s and high 80s. No stinkers. That's pretty amazing. Now, how about the man, the myth, the Mahomes? I know his numbers haven't been as good this year, or in recent years, I should say. But so last year, his quarterback range was only 93.5. So he had a fairly low quarterback rating. But look at this. His distribution is pretty tight here. There is one absolute horrible game he had with a horrible quarterback rating. But other than that, he holds together. And then his playoff quarterback ratings are very good. Got him to the Super Bowl. Even in the Super Bowl, I can't remember how well he actually played, but his numbers are pretty good. 3 touchdowns, 2 INTs. Well, not great, not terrible. 2024 passer rating leaders. Passer rating. Lamar. Okay, let's check Lamar Jackson. We'll check Lamar Jackson, Baker Mayfield, and Jalen Hurts, and Josh Allen. Okay, that's a good selection. But you can see all the guys with high quarterback ratings last year. Look at all these guys over 100. Derek Carr, Tua. Anyway, Lamar, 119.6. I don't remember him having a quarterback rating that high. That's insane. Lamar, 2024. And I hear a lot of people criticize him. I don't know what they're smoking. Oh, look at this. He has 158.3 and 158.1 and 154.6. Check this out. So he has only one low one at Pittsburgh. Okay, it's 66.1. He threw a touchdown and a pick. It wasn't horrible. And then in the playoffs, he was good. You look at quarterback rating. Can't expect much more than that in the playoffs. So Lamar tops Darnold. How about Baker Mayfield, who has a little of a J.J. McCarthy vibe, although Baker Mayfield was kind of physically reminds me a bit of J.J. McCarthy, kind of small, but Baker Mayfield was a prolific college quarterback. I wouldn't say the same about, what's his name? McCarthy. Baker, 106.8. Again, very consistent. 1 week game and overtime loss. Again, not terrible. 64% completion. It's just the 2 INTs and not really, that's it. 2 INTs. Otherwise, very consistent. Very consistent. Not as many 100 rating games, but very consistent. Who's next? Justin Herbert. I don't care about him. Jalen Hurts. Okay. Seen him getting criticized. He won a Super Bowl last year, but let's criticize him. Yeah, that's brilliant. I would take him. He looked good against the Vikings. So he had 103.7. Very consistent. One absolute turd where he must have got hurt. So that really doesn't count. He got hurt early in the game, probably. So you take that out, everything is good. To average to good. And then in the playoffs, good. Jalen Hurts, you're the man. Josh Allen, the man. The big guy. The guy Anthony Barr wants no part of. Josh Allen, 101.4. He's got a couple turds here. At Houston, turd, 56.4. At Indy, in a win, kind of a turd. No touchdowns, 2 INTs. 67.3 against New England. So, and he's got a lot of 100 quarterback rating games. So he's more feast or famine. He looks a little more like Darnold. Maybe a little more athletic. Definitely more athletic. Maybe gets more on the ground. And then the playoffs, very good. Mediocre. Very good in that KC. So he was good in the playoffs. We'll give him that. So, little inconsistent though. Little more inconsistent with Josh Allen. I think that's it. I don't want to look at any of the other. Let's see everyone in the cat. Is there anyone else I want to look at? Jaden Daniels. Well, he was 100. Let's look at Jaden Daniels. Jaden Daniels. He had a quarterback rating of 100.1, and he only had 6 games where his quarterback rating was 100 or more. He had a really bad week 17, pretty bad week 10. But boy, for a rookie, you look at this, he comes in 93, 99, 141, 96, 85, 110, 79, 93. And then in the playoffs, 110. On the road, 110. On the road at Detroit, 122, and they win. And then at Philly, Philly is always knocking people down, it seems. So 72.8 at Philly in the NFC Championship game. Well, could do a lot worse. Jaden Daniels looking good there. Anyway, let's go back to Darnold, okay? Let's go back to Darnold. Now that we've looked at kind of a bunch of other quarterbacks with similarly high quarterback ratings, let's recheck Darnold. Let's check 2025 first, then we'll come back to his Vikings stats. Again, he's got 2 of the last 4 games, these kind of turds. I mean, they beat the Vikings 26-0 because Max Brosmer, Max Manzier, that's one reason, main reason. And they lost at Los Angeles pretty much all because of Darnold. If you're a Seattle fan going into the playoffs, how confident are you in Darnold? And then back to the Vikings, 2024 with the Vikings. It just comes back to week 5, really bad. Week 10, really bad. Week 17, really bad. But let's look at this game where things really went south. The Vikings lost 31-9 with the season on the line, home field advantage on the line, division on the line, first round bye on the line. And if you lose, you're going on the road the next week and losing, which is what happened. The Vikings defense came out and was playing really well. So let's look at the play-by-play. Vikings won the toss and deferred. Vikings defense stops Detroit. And then the Vikings get the ball. And they have a drive where they get looks like 3 first downs. They're dinking it a little. Penalty on Johnny Munt. Darnold throws a couple incompletions. They punt, okay? No big deal. Then Detroit gets the ball. They go for a touchdown. Vikings get the ball. Darnold is sacked for minus 17 yards. How does that even happen? So that drive is done. It's minus 17 yards. That's not a real good play. Then they get the ball back again. Darnold pass, 13 yards, pass. Get a couple first downs. Incomplete. So, it's just looking at this. Let's look back at this here. Whose name do you see a lot? Sam Darnold. 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 Then the next Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold. And that's the first. It's just all Sam Darnold. All Sam Darnold. Every play almost. Sam Darnold drops back. Incomplete. Sack. So I gotta say, play calling definitely played a role here. Inability to run the ball. And I'm not a guy who says, you got to run the ball. You got to establish the run. You got to be able to call plays that they're not expecting. You got to not be predictable all the time. So if they know you're going to throw every time, you're in trouble. What I see here, what happened in that Detroit game, and the reason Sam Darnold is no longer a Viking and they didn't re-sign him, is two reasons. Part of it is Sam Darnold. You look at his stats over the different games, he has a tendency to have these crap games. In a way that most other quarterbacks don't. Most other quarterbacks at that level, in that kind of top 10 of the league, mostly avoid those kind of garbage games, unless apparently they're playing the Eagles. Sam Darnold is good for a couple of those a year. He had 3 of them last year in the regular season. One of them the last week of the year against Detroit. And he's had 2 in the last 4 weeks for the Seahawks. And he's probably going to have another when the Seahawks fans don't want him to. But also, Kevin O'Connell coached him into that turd against Detroit with just ridiculous play calling, always having him drop back. The two came together to create a horrible result in that Detroit game. And they let Darnold go. If Darnold had won that game against Detroit, there's no question he'd be back. Or if they had won that playoff game against the Rams, he would be back. But he's not. And would the Vikings be better if he was back? Of course, yeah. Would they be a playoff team? I don't think so. They'd be a little better. But I don't think they'd be a playoff team. And they definitely wouldn't be a contender for the Super Bowl. So did they make the right decision letting him go? I don't know. He's durable. He hasn't gotten hurt. That's very valuable. A guy who can stay on the field. The real problem, though, is they had to make that call. Like, nobody thought Sam Darnold was worth anything going into last year, going into 2024. The Vikings just had no choice. They just had fumbled the quarterback position. They had no replacement for Kirk Cousins. Darnold was all they had. I don't think they expected any more from him than they got out of Carson Wentz this year. So they were stuck in that position to say, okay, this guy who we didn't think was worth anything looks like he's worth more than we thought, and we don't have anything better, so do we re-sign him? They chose not to. I honestly think if they had re-signed him, we would all be less happy at the end of this year. Because there would have been a lot more false hope. Maybe not by me. Maybe I would temper my expectations. But they win a few games with him slinging it. You start to believe. And then he has that horrible game. And Kevin O'Connell calls nothing but passes for the entire first half, even though the running game is working. And everything is crushed. So, is it better that they didn't re-sign Sam Darnold? I'm saying yes. We're going to hurt less as this season comes to an end. There's going to be more hope. We get to see the good and the bad from J.J. McCarthy. Maybe we find someone else to be the next Sam Darnold next year too. The most important thing is keep Seahawks fans in your prayers. They're going to need them.